Welcome to the InfoMullet YouTube channel. If you enjoy this content, please like or share. And if you'd like to support the InfoMullet by becoming a mulleteer, visit us on Patreon. We appreciate your support. So let's shift from radicalization and the trauma of the insurrection and angst and fury and all that, and just go over to GameStop, which is a happy, fun-loving story as I round out this, get to the bottom half of what I want to talk about. So GameStop, this I'm going to have to refer to my notes because this gets, so media literacy on GameStop. First of all, if you like this content, activate yourself as a radical and become a Patreon supporter, right? I'm narrowcasting, damn it. I'm going to activate you, your identity. You want to be a mulleteer or a senior mulleteer, you know, go out www.patreon.com/infomullet, become a mulleteer subscriber. Yeah, there you go. So I suck at radicalization. That's just the bottom line. If you like, and I say again, we've got the large mega mullet just came out for Russia. It's on the blog now. The mega mullet on the impeachment and trial is coming up. That'll come out this weekend. And I'm doing a poll. If you're an actual mulleteer right now, go on to Patreon, participate in the poll. Tell me when you want the special episode that's all about the impeachment and insurrection charge, specifically about Trump. We've kind of touched on it, but I dive deep into that one. So media literacy, GameStop. There's going to be, first, there's so much confusion about the stock market that I just want to do a brief educational thing, right? Very simplified. And this is done by the standard caveat that I don't know why people do, but maybe there's a law. I'm not a financial advisor. I got a fucking stuffed donkey next to me. I don't have a bandana on my head. I'm not on Reddit. Don't take my advice literally. Do your own homework, blah, blah, blah. Void where prohibited. No batteries included. So how does this whole thing work, right? So let's start from the beginning. When you buy a stock, generally price goes up a little. When you sell a stock, price goes down, okay? All clear so far. Longs are people who buy a stock hoping the price will go up so they can sell it at a higher price. If you buy it at $20, you sell it at $30, you pocket $10. That is a long. It's what most people think of stock buying, right? I bought a share, I hold on to it for some length of time, I hope it goes up. Let's not even get into stored value and whether ownership or all that. We're keeping it simple here, very simple. Buy stock at 20, stock goes to 30, sell stock, make $10. A short is the mirror inverse of a long. So a long buys a stock at a price, waits a period of time, and sells it at the higher price. A short starts by selling a stock and then later buying it, hopefully at a lower price. Now, how this works, just take it on my word that it does. There's a lot of financial history in here and a lot of abstraction, but you're basically borrowing a share from someone and saying, sell it to me at 20 bucks, right? I will buy it then at $10. And that means that if you, the $10 difference, when it goes down in price, you make the difference. The purpose of a short is to make money when the stock value goes down. So here's the deal with a short. If in a short position, if you bought it at 10, or excuse me, you had it sold to you, you sell it at 20 and you buy it at 10, you make 10 bucks. Because remember, you start with a sale, and this is why it gets tricky. But if you're a short and you sell it at 20 and the stock then goes up to 30, you've lost 10. So this is the key difference between long and shorts. Long want the stock to go up because they make money. Shorts want the stock to go down. Now, all of these things can be done as margins. A margin is when you're using only a fraction of the total funds to basically purchase. It's basically you're using 25 to 30%, and that way you can leverage the money. If you have $100 and you want to use a margin account, you can go long, you can go short, and you can do it more than you have the actual means to. And there's rules, all sorts of rules about how much of your account can be margined, how much money you have to put down. The key thing is shorts are always required by FINRA regulation to have 25% of the value of their shorts in the account. This is important. It will come in later. The next three concepts are all various market phenomena that happen out there, right? One's called a pump and dump. A pump and dump is when someone has a lot of shares, they increase hype, so a lot of people buy those shares. And as those shares go up in price, because remember, as you buy a share, it goes up. As lots of people buy the shares, they sell the shares they have into that rise. They want to make that difference between their buy and their sell, so they hype it up. It's called a pump and dump. Because remember, when you sell a share, price goes down. So, and this all works out in little micro fractions, millions of times a second. But just a pump and dump is an actual maneuver where someone hypes the stock to sell it, and then it goes down. when they sell a bunch. And the people who bought it at the higher price are now underwater because they bought it at, say, 30 and it's dropped down to 25. Now, you don't realize any losses in a long until you sell the stock. You're just, it's paper loss. The short squeeze is different. A short squeeze is when you've gone short and everyone else is buying the stock. So it goes up. Because remember, on a short, you lose money as it goes up. And because you have to keep 25% of the value of your short position in the account at any time, I think that's the number, right? If you bought a stock at 20 and it goes up to 30 bucks, you may have to put a couple more bucks in. If it goes up to 50 bucks, you got to put more money in. There's no limit to the amount of pain you can have. And a short squeeze happens is as the shorts have to put more money in, they may say, screw it, I'm out, I'm going to close the position, and they take the loss. To close a short means that you buy a stock, right? So remember, you started out by selling the stock, and you end it by buying. So it's the reverse of the normal. When you close that short position and buy a stock, it has the effect of pushing the stock up. So every other short just got screwed by a little bit more. And what a short squeeze is when a whole bunch of people experience an enormous amount of pain that their shorts are underwater, that they are forced to close their accounts. And that causes more buying to happen, which drives the price up even more, putting more pain on the remaining shorts. So it becomes this feedback effect. Now, a dead cat bounce, great name. A dead cat bounce often happens as part of either a pump and dump or a short squeeze. And that is when a stock price is falling dramatically. And then it has a sharp rise, like it looks like it's recovering. But what's happening is as the price is falling, remember, short positions, they clear out their short position by buying it. And for them, if the money's gone down from where they had it originally, they want to realize those profits. They'll buy those shares to close the position, and buying moves the stocks up. So a dead cat bounce is when shorts begin clearing their position. It will drive the price up, but only as long as they're clearing the positions, and then the price will drop back down. So it has a dead cat bounce. Now, some of this, there are lots of guardrails in the system. And the guardrails, think of this as, and this gets into GameStop, right? Well, let's talk about the guardrails. The guardrails to keep, there are volatility breakers. Trading halts can be held at any time if there's a certain amount of volatility. These FINRA requirements for deposits and funds on hand. The brokerages themselves have to keep certain amounts of funds on hand. And the reason why is we often think that once we buy a share that is ours in our pocket right now, and we bought it from somebody out there and there's like an immediate transfer. Doesn't work that way. Specific to GameStop, what happened is there was it's a crappy company. No one thinks it's a good company. It had a large short position, up to 100%. Some people say more than 100%. So this is something that if you wanted to do a short squeeze, you could really engineer it quickly. And there was a group on Reddit called Wall Street Bets that got a swarm effect. They got together and started buying GameStop. Now, GameStop is a horrible stock, but they bought it intentionally to create the short squeeze. This was a strategy that I call of like, it's like letting toddlers run in the freeway to be hit by trucks for the purpose of taking the truck out, or climbing into a kamikaze plane. No one normally would buy a stock as poorly as GameStop because it's long-term prospects. But if you specifically want to hurt a hedge fund, and you're targeting a hedge fund, and you know these hedge funds are very exposed, you go in knowing you're going to lose the money you do. And what happens is because you buy it, the price goes up. Now the hedge funds are feeling that pain. They've got to bring in the billions of dollars to fill up their account, or they've got to close their position. If they close the position, it puts more pain on the other hedge funds. You get a short squeeze. So last week, what happened with GameStop is it all came together in about 4 days, and it continued through to this week. There was a massive short squeeze that these several hedge funds lost, I think, $20 to $30 billion in a matter of days, because this stock that no one thought was any good was specifically targeted not to buy it on value or to hold it, but to specifically engineer pain for the hedge funds. And it caused that. It literally caused the pain. Now, some people have said hedge funds have been bankrupted. I don't think they've been bankrupted. Certainly, they've been hurt. And if you're a hedge fund, if you're hurt, you don't want to say you're bankrupt until the last possible minute so we can see that come out. But the problem that happens, and where a lot of this kind of got confusing is, I mean, if it wasn't confusing already, is the trading brokerage where most of this activity was taking place on. Robinhood on Thursday put in limits on how trades were done. Now, Robinhood is not a traditional brokerage. It doesn't charge any fees. And most of the accounts on Robinhood are margin accounts. Remember, I said margin accounts are where you don't have to have as much money as what you're actually spending. Margin accounts have very specific requirements, and Robinhood encourages people to put in and upgrade and get these margin accounts. It encourages that. They also make money by selling your trading information out to people who are using it in market flow to identify patterns. One of these is Citadel. One of the ones who's been targeted is like, hey, they got all this information. Maybe they had a hand. But there is a very complicated plumbing involved when you have a margin account and these shares are going back and forth. Now, there's a Twitter thread down there, and this gets into the plumbing in detail. But if you think about this, for every transaction, it's not me selling buying a share of stock from one person. There's actually 4 to 5 parties involved, and it takes place over 2 days. So there's the buyer of the stock, me. There's Robinhood that I'm trading in. There's a clearinghouse called DTCC. And then there's the seller's brokerage and the seller's account. So what happens is as I put in a buy order, Robinhood passes that on to DTCC, who finds a seller's brokerage, they find a sell. All of these things match up. To me, it looks like I bought a share. But what's going on behind the scenes is there's all of this settling that has to happen. And it takes about 2 days, 1 to 2 days. And it actually, anytime that money is moving around, but actual property hasn't changed hand, there's risk, there's counterparty risk. And that's normally no biggie. But when you're a bargain basement budget platform like Robinhood, you've got no traditional fees, that counterparty risk can require you to put in a lot of money very quickly when the price goes way up. Normally what they do to manage this is they do hedges themselves. So everything I just described can get more complicated, which is a put and a call. A put is an option to buy, a call is an option to short. And think of these as just option that at some point in the future, you agree to sell me a stock or you agree to let me buy a stock at a certain price. That's an option. Now, on stocks that are worthless, these options are very cheap. Think of these like planes. Think of the shares like planes, right? You got 4 or 5 parties. I buy a plane, and until the plane gets in my account, there's money going back and forth. There's risk. There's counterparty risk. Those require funds to make sure that it all settles well. And a lot of the regulations that were passed in the wake of the 2008 financial calamity and the flash crash were designed to protect retail investors from volatility. That way, if there's a major price spike, they don't have to eat it. But that risk increases as volatility spikes up to unusual amounts, and it increases when the normal operating rules of the market aren't being followed. So think of this. If I buy a plane and the value of the plane is worthless, no one values the plane as much. It's a couple cents, then it trades very cheaply. But if all of a sudden there's a run on kamikaze planes, right? Everyone's running out to get their kamikaze plane. All of a sudden, the cost of kamikaze planes goes way up simply because a lot of people want to get in a kamikaze plane and run into that hedge fund. So now kamikaze planes, supply and demand. Kamikaze planes get expensive, and there's the correlation that you would normally use to hedge the kamikaze plane or that you would use to hedge your planes is gone. The example is normally when an option to buy a stock that is out of the money, that means that the agreement is worthless. It's paper, it's worthless. The expiration's coming up, and the price to buy it is outside of, it's not worth anything. It's at that point, it's trash. Usually those are valued at pennies. But because there are a lot of people looking to buy kamikaze planes from Reddit suddenly, that now one option might be worth $19. And it flips this whole thing where the money that Robinhood would have and they'd be able to allocate evaporates. And all of a sudden they've got extremely high volatility, extremely high funding amounts. They've got to put in the funding pieces and fund that to ensure the counterparty risk. All of this causes them to put the limits on the buys, which occurred on Thursday. Now, this is key. This is Robinhood and a few other trading firms did it well, but this is not the entire market. There was plenty of trading going on in these stocks throughout, and I'll show in a second here how that happened. But Robinhood, no one anticipates. This is the cool thing about Reddit, and to me, the free market. No one from Senator Warren being smart and building the regulations to the FINRA or the FIRE Act or all these other, no one thought when they build guardrails on the freeway, they don't think someone's going to take a strategy of running toddlers in front of the bus to slow the bus down. They don't think people are going to get a kamikaze plane and go hit the hedge fund. That's what happened. I think it's a valid market tactic. It's a free market, but the regulations aren't built to accommodate that. And what we saw happen Thursday, Friday is the seizure go up in Robinhood that put this halt on buying. It didn't halt selling, but it put a halt on buying. And the reason why is the guardrails worked. You put guardrails on the freeway so a toddler doesn't get on in front of the truck. There is no contingency in which someone can say, well, you know, this toddler's okay. Let's put him in front of the truck. Let's throw him out there. But that's what people were doing. They're saying, I want to buy a stock that is effectively worse than worthless. And the reason I want to buy it isn't reflected in any of these regulations. And it worked up the whole system and created this cascading effects, which is very easy. Now, if you were following me on Facebook, I was interested on Thursday. I was concerned on Friday, or excuse me, I was interested on Wednesday. I was very concerned on Thursday. And by Friday, I said, if you're buying into this stock, you're getting played for a pump and dump, which is, yeah. So I'm seeing, let's see here. Let's go through the questions before I go to the numbers here. Yep, and let's see, long, you can, okay, people are going through discussing longs. The Corps taught me entirely definition of pump and dump. Yeah, Marine Corps have a definition of pump and dump. So Jeff's talking about the 140% float, meaning there were 40% more stocks during their actual stocks. Jeff, key point on that number. Talking to people who work in this industry and the regulators, that number is only reported twice a month, at the 1st and like the 20th of the month. In the meantime, and this gets into really detailed plumbing more than I just did, if insiders are selling their shares, those shares are not accounted for in the denominator that makes up the float percentage. So you could have 100% short float that isn't a naked short illegal based off the insiders selling their shares because you've added to the overall value. And you won't know that until these numbers get published. Now, there's some people who say, well, I can see the inside numbers. I'm not going to get in that level. But there are scenarios where you may have 100 and X% of the seeming shares out there, not because they're naked shorting, but because insiders have been selling it. Now, why would insiders sell? If I'm a GameStop insider, why would I sell my shares? I might sell my shares if somewhere along the way, a bunch of people on Reddit drove the value up of GameStop, which was trading in a very narrow range of like $8 to $20 for a long time, they started driving up in value. I haven't been able to unload my shares in a long time. I may start selling it as an insider. And all of a sudden, you've got a scenario where the shares they're selling add to the market cap now of available shares, can be used as float, will report a percentage that's over 100%, but it won't rationalize until that next reporting. We'll find out. There'll be an investigation. They'll find out if there really was naked short. And if there were naked shorts, people need to go to jail. That's pretty clear. We'll find out. This thing's got enough spotlights on. We'll know for sure, but it may take a week or two. And so people are making their comments. Yeah, so Mark is talking about the legal culpabilities of Redditors, Robin. So let's go to the charts. Let's pretend Kramer, I'm not going to be able to do justice to Kramer here, but let's go to, here we go. We'll go to the charts and show what happened here as this played out over GameStop. So I can go through and walk this. So this is GameStop over the last, so if we zoom out, right, this is over 3 months. You can see this trading range here. This is just to clear the chart. These are days at the bottom. You can see December going into January 2021. The line is the share value, and then these columns are the buy and sell interest. Green means there's a higher buy interest than there is a sell. Red means there's a sell. It tells you kind of which way it's going or where the volume, and this is the volume of shares. So you see here that even back in December, here we go. Let's go back several months, right? So here's the start of 2020. There's a weird spike there. You go through, it's very flat. And then beginning in September, it starts gradually going up. It comes up, it was at $4 or $5. And then between September and it has a little spike here. It's now raising up light about, so it's almost quadrupled. And this is the scenario, Jeff, I was talking about. If you're an insider and you watch us and you're sitting on a lot of shares, you may start selling in here, which may create that float number that's 140%. I'm not saying it is. There needs to be an investigation. They'll figure it out. But there is a plausible reason that's not naked short, which will end up burning a bunch of people who bet that it was a naked short. So let's zoom in now to the specific here. This is getting into the last couple days here of January. So this is the 14th of January. You can see here it's moved up. I've taxed CNBC to the point. Yeah, too many people are trading GameStop. I'm not able to bring it up. So pause for load. This is the problem. You never want to work with live animals or stocks. Yes, I want to. Ad blocker. There we go. Okay, so hopefully we'll see this. So zoom in. Here we go. You can tell I don't have any actual expensive trading tools. I would never be able to meet a deep value. Okay, so here's the rise of the last couple of days. This is where you have this gathering accumulation. The short squeeze I talked about happened right here. This is the short squeeze. This is when the pain, it literally occurs over several days. This is a parabolic curve, perfect exponential. This is when the hedge funds lose all that money. This is when Robinhood puts the brakes on, and you can see here the 28th. And then it goes back up, because remember, other companies are selling throughout this. And you can see the volume is decreasing a little bit here, partly because it goes into the weekend. But you can still see there's way more volume than there normally is. Normal volume's down here. Let's see, that's 14 million. And up here in the short squeeze, it's billions of shares traded, it looks like, or 17 million, some insane number. Then it drops like a rock. So Friday, I put my warning out on Friday. It was at 300 to 350 by Friday, depending on when you bought it. And people are still getting into buy. And they're buying the stock thinking the short squeeze is going to go on forever. The problem is during this time here, a bunch of the hedge funds cleared out their positions. So the ones that got hammered, Melvin Capital, those ones, they got clobbered. They had to close their positions. But new shorts came in. And the new short said, wow, this is at 300 bucks. This is going to go down sometime. So they started their short position at 300. And this is when I started to get worried, because people were still saying things like, I know a couple people who did this. They took their money. They walked away. They gave a stab for against the hedge fund. Good for you. Nice job. But if you stayed in, you're at risk of a major pump and dump, because the people who are selling need the share prices to stay up to get their exit out. And that's what happened is over the weekend, it dropped from 325. It's now down to 100. So if you bought the stock at $300 to $350 on Friday, you've lost $150 or $250 almost, $200 to $250 just in 3 days. And it's, even if you look in here to the 1 day, you can see this dead cat bounce where there's been a couple of, right? So you see here, this is where it drops on a lot on February. It drops here. See how it jumps back up? This is the dead cat bounce that I was talking about. It drops down. It's going down. All of a sudden, the short sellers who bought in at 300, they're saying, I've made $200 a share. I'm out of here. They're gone. They usually close in a couple days. This buying pattern is actually the short sellers clearing out their latest victims. And that's the dead count bounce. And people seeing this may have thought, oh, it's going to recover, go back, and then it drops again. And it's been fighting here and struggling. It's, even if it recovers to 120 or something, it's now a third of what it was. And the reason that we know that this is a bad stock to buy is you can look at these numbers here on these fundamentals here, and you can look at like earnings per share. This stock is making negative $5 per share. So a price to earnings ratio, a simple thing in stocks is price to earnings is how much are you paying for every dollar that you're getting in earnings. If I had a P&E of 30, that means I'm paying $30 per dollar of earnings. But a negative number means I'm spending $25 here, this 24.61. I'm spending $25 of my money to get negative $1 in return. And that obviously makes no sense. Now, people aren't buying this on P&E. They're not buying it on fundamentals. They're buying it to be a kamikaze aimed at these hedge funds. But this is why I was saying that everything got jacked up with Robinhood, because normally these shares would be worth $0. And this is, by the way, this is after $200 of loss. A forward P&E looks at the forward earnings. So the P&E is past earnings. Forward earnings says over the next 12 months, how much you're paying for every dollar of earning you're going to have. And at Friday, this was negative $3,000. That means people buying the shares on Friday afternoon were spending $3,000 for every $1 negative they were getting. This is the definition of a kamikaze plane, or throwing a toddler in front of the bus to hurt the bus, right? Nothing in the regulations we had that Robinhood was acting under would have protected people in the situation, because it was never conceived of that they would do something like this. Now, as a free market fan, you know, short vigilantism is a thing. if there was this concept of bond vigilantes about 2 decades ago, and they kind of faded out over the last decade, bond vigilantes specifically went after bond rates because they thought that it was being exploitive or things like that. They tend to be major markets. But short vigilantism could be a thing, and that's a market strategy. That's if a bunch of people decide shorts are bad, and they're going to find hedge funds that are overexposed, their float rate's too high, they haven't been discreet about what they hold, and tag them. That's a valid arbitrage of market information. I don't have a problem with that. That's fine. My fear is, and I'll get into this in a second, with the mystery Mousektool, is a lot of people are getting into this because of the hype and the FOMO and the fear of missing out. And what I saw from Wednesday to Thursday, and definitely from Thursday to Friday, was a shift. And it was a dangerous shift where it's bringing people in who didn't understand, and they were being roped in with this kind of narrative that says, hey, strike it at the hedge fund, give a blow to capitalism. And they're spending real money, which they have now lost quite a bit of. And check the, before we get into the Mousektool, I will check the comments one last time. Yep. Yeah, Lucas pointing out human variations and rationality only have a loose relationship to one another. Lucas, hold that thought. Brendan admitting here that he bought some, sold some, made a few hundred. And yeah, I mean, you know, Kramer has a great phrase: pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. You know, get your money, make your money, take it out. But people who are trying to play this for a major win or something, I think got misled by later in the week. And Brendan saying, listen, the toddlers were a necessary sacrifice. That's the thing, is the system was not put in place to allow folks to put toddlers in front of trucks. And thanks for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to follow the Info Mullet, visit us on Facebook or Twitter. And if you'd like notifications when we post new video content, click on the red subscribe button below the video. If you've ever wanted to become a mulleteer and support the Info Mullet, visit us on Patreon. We appreciate the support.